All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence, and if you like guitar rock, maybe if you're a Southern rock fan, Outlaws singer, songwriter, guitarist Henry Paul joining us. They have a new 2-CD set, Legacy Live, ferocious material, and we welcome him now to All Things Considered. Henry, how you doing? Aloha, brother.
Hey, Dave, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for asking and reviewing this thing. Is this the set list that you guys are generally playing live?
It follows the set list faithfully, but I had a little added music in the middle, 3 or 4 or 5 songs. For the most part, I'm singing lead on a lot of these songs. We have 5 singers on every song. All I had to do was to listen down to their performance.
One of my favorite live records is Live at the Fillmore East from the Allman Brothers.
Well, and I listened to that. It's a one-singer record. No harmony vocals for the most part, just a single voice and a blazing band. It's a very inspiring piece of work. An unapproachably inspiring piece of work. You can never,
right.
get anywhere close to what that represents. But I went back to the Eagles record, which is impeccable. You know who I listened to, who I was just knocked out by? The Phil Collins record, the live album by Phil Collins. Impeccable from the standpoint of his performance and the sonic qualities. After I listened to his record, I just threw down my glasses and said, I'm done. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen the Sade DVD?
I have not.
There's a live DVD of Sade that is one of the most perfect, musically gorgeous works of art I've ever seen and heard. Her band was unbelievable. It's just, the Outlaws are kind of a raucous cowboy guitar rock band, and we don't have the sophisticated Phil Collins personality or the Sade personality. We do mirror the Eagles and the Allman Brothers to a degree. So when you use those as your guide, I just wanted to make sure that we were in the realm sonically of an improved version of either one of those records. And I really was convinced that we had a very, very good document of where this band is today.
Taking a step back to the beginning, in those couple of years from 72 to 74, describe the original ideas of what kind of sound you would have, and if there was an intentional nod, if you will, to both Skynyrd, Allmans, those two, really.
I think it was fair to say that the Allman Brothers were an enormous musical influence on the Outlaws. Lynyrd Skynyrd, not so much, because they were in their own orbit. We were sort of in that country rock, cowboy hat, harmony vocal mindset, following in the footsteps of Poco and the Allman Brothers, and, eventually carved out our own identity with the songs that we were writing. We just got swept along, and lucky for us, we were able to get a deal with Arista and cut that first record with Paul Rothchild, and we had Greengrass and High Tides on there that became an FM album-oriented rock success.
According to my research, the signing of the Outlaws has a lot to do with Ronnie Van Zant of Lynyrd Skynyrd and an interesting personal contact he had with record mogul Clive Davis at a particular concert.
We opened a show for Lynyrd Skynyrd in Nashville. It was about 1,000-seat club called Mother's Music Emporium. 74, I believe. I guess Ronnie came to the show early and watched the Outlaws. And the next morning, he called his manager and said, listen, I just found a great new band, and they got themselves a Freebird. And he was talking about Greengrass and High Tides. So his manager contacted our then manager. They formed a partnership as a management team. And with the strength of Lynyrd Skynyrd's manager, we were able to attract the attention of major labels. He took us into the studio. We cut maybe 14 demos. He took those demos to New York. Clive sent his A&R director down to see the band. The guy came back with a raving review. Clive came to see the band in Columbus, Georgia. Ronnie knew he was in the audience, and I guess he said from the stage, if you don't sign this band, you're a dumbass. And so we really do owe our career to Ronnie Van Zant that way.
What a huge guy. What a huge story.
We used to spend a lot of time together on the road. We played hundreds of shows with Leonard Skinner, trying to eclipse their performance from the standpoint of popularity. And we had a very competitive sort of character to our relationship. But we also had an endearing one, and I remember one night he and I were in the front lounge of our bus. Just he and I. It was after a show in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And we were passing the bottle of Jack Daniels back and forth. He was bragging that he was the Prince of Dixie, and that Duane Allman was the king and he was the prince. And I was refuting his claim, and it got into a little bit of a shoving match, and it was all in fun, but it was very, belligerently intoxicated. The conversation moves from the front lounge of the bus into the hotel and onto the elevator. Ronnie and I got into shoving one another around and wrestling around, and we knocked over an ashtray in front of the elevator, one of those big sand ashtrays. And white sand went flying everywhere. And we got in the elevator, and I got off at my floor, and he got off at his. And that was the last time I saw the guy alive.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't that long after that. He was gone. And with him went a great deal of the Southern rock.
An era
what
ended.
Would you call it? Yeah, it was a phenomena. With the death of that band, it sort of earmarked the death of the genre. Of course, the Allmans loomed somewhere way up above us all.
That's a great story.
There were moments that were profound. I remember we did 2 nights in San Francisco at the Winterland Ballroom with Leonard Skinner, and we were on our way to Portland. And we were in the front lounge of our bus, and we're rolling along I-5. It must be 3 or 4 in the morning, and Huey and I are out in the front lounge. And he was very homesick. I remember him telling me, he goes, God, I just want to go home. And he's no longer with us either. And, those kinds of losses are profound, and to this day, they're extremely charged emotionally.
Oh, I have no doubt, brother.
But we have great memories, and part of the purpose behind this record was to document the Outlaws' musical legacy and go to the songwriters and Huey Thomason and Billy Jones and go to the contributors like Frank O'Keefe, and to make sure that they knew that we hadn't forgotten them and we weren't going to allow the fans the opportunity to overlook what they did.
It sounds like you still have like an ongoing spiritual relationship with Frank, Billy, and Huey.
Absolutely, every single night.
A final note, and it sounds appropriate really following what you were just mentioning, Ghost Riders in the Sky. As you talk about these Ghost Riders in the Sky, sort of the Outlaws who are still riding with you.
Yes.
What was it that led to covering that song, which now, in light of what you've just said about Legacy Live, makes it all the more poignant?
I think that the imagery of that lyric and the twangy essence of that song, and I'm going back to Burl Ives and Johnny Cash's version of it, was so appropriate for the Outlaws' musical personality. And I think Huey came up with this idea of covering that song, and by the time it got interpreted by the Outlaws, it came to life as a rock and roll sort of personality to according to Burl Ives' version, it was just a really pleasant folk song, but when the Outlaws got done with it, it's a great way to close the show as an encore, and in retrospect, sort of an appropriate theme to the guys that are no longer with us.
Henry Paul, Outlaws, singer, songwriter, guitarist, Legacy Live. Really appreciated talking with you today, too.
Oh, good. Well, it was my pleasure, Dave, and we'd love to bring our little cowboy rock show over there and jam up on the big wave. Thanks for your time and your help in spreading the message, and hopefully one day our paths will cross.
I'm hoping so, man. Thank you for being so generous with the storytelling and the music all these years. Like you were saying, how Ronnie described, they got another Freebird. Well, that's really the case, and not every band can do that, so you have that extra thing that you do for fans in need sometimes. So know that people out there are sometimes turning to your music just to get through a rough stretch, and it's appreciated, Henry.
Well, it's what we do, and it's nice to know that we can be of help in different ways, I appreciate your enthusiasm more than you know.
Be safe. I'm giving you a hug. Thank you for that.
Later, Dave. Aloha, it's Henry Paul of the Outlaws. Don't you touch that dial. You're with my friend Dave Lawrence.
when dark and when